Hey there, and welcome to the cutest little thing. I am Andrea, and I'm so glad you have joined me for today's video. If you love thrift flips, home decor, upcycling, DIYs, and all of the things, then you are at the right place, and I'm so glad you are here today. If you are new to my channel, welcome, and if you have been with me before, welcome back. I have some awesome projects in store for you today, so we will get right to them. Let's get started. Hey y'all, thanks so much for joining me today. I can't wait to show you this project. I have these red berries. I thrifted these. They came in a large vase and I just removed them from the vase, and I'm picking some off. We are going to be making faux little mini Christmas pies in today's video. They are super cute, so I hope that you will stick around to the end to see the finished product. So I have a little bowl here, and these are foam berries. They have a coating on them, and it is messing that coating up just a little bit as I pick them off the branch, but that's okay because we are going to be repainting these berries because these pies are sort of have a little bit of a primitive style to them, so I wanted the berry to be a little darker than this. Once I have all the berries I need picked off, I take a little sandwich baggie and I pour those little berries in there. Now I was going to use this crimson color in the Waverly with a little coffee grunge, but it was dried up and I couldn't moisten it enough to use it. So I'm using Apple Barrel's acrylic paint in the color Barn Red, and I'm so glad it worked out for me to use this color because it was the absolute perfect color. I didn't have to tweak it one bit. It was already the color that I needed it. So I just squirted a little paint in my baggie and seal it up, and you just take it and just squish that baggie all over and keep peeking at those berries, and once they're all coated with that paint, you are good to go. And you can also keep adding a little paint in there as you need it, but once they're all coated, I've just kind of pushed them out of the bag, kind of squeezed them out, and I just lay them out on the table there. I've got them on some craft paper where they don't damage your surface or anything. And while that paint is still wet, I take some Epsom salt and just sprinkle all over the berries, and it will dry into that paint. Epsom salt I normally keep on hand, but you can also use diamond dust if you would rather use that, or you could use crafter's sand or glitter from your local dollar store. Now these little white saucers, I thrifted these as well. You can use any base for these pies. If you have little mini pie pans, that would be perfect, or little jar lids, you could use that. Now for this one, I went straight onto the saucer and put my hot glue to adhere my berries, and that worked. But after I was making several of these that day, getting them ready for my booth, and after I made this first one, I did cut a little piece of muslin fabric and I glued that down in my plate first, and then I hot glued the berries onto that. But I will get to that where you will see what I'm talking about, but that seemed to work just a little bit better. And you just keep hot gluing your berries down until they completely cover the center of your saucer or your base, whatever you're using. You don't have to hot glue them all the way to your edge because we are going to be creating faux crust going around those edges. For our crust, I will be using muslin fabric. I get my muslin fabric off of Amazon, and I do coffee stain it. All I do is take some plain black coffee with nothing in it, or if you're not a coffee drinker and you don't have that coffee on hand, you can just use some instant coffee grounds and hot water and stir that up. Let your fabric soak for a few minutes and dry it, and you're ready to go. And as you can see, I'm just hot gluing. I'm working in sections because your hot glue will dry quickly. So you put a dab of hot glue down and then you press that muslin fabric onto your saucer. And I'm sort of pinching my fabric, making little pleats in it because you want to mimic a pie crust. And you know how pie crusts have those little pleats or ripples or what have you on there, and that's what you're trying to mimic with the fabric. And you just continue going all the way around that pie until your fabric covers the entire outside edge. And you'll notice my fabric isn't meeting the berries, but I'm creating a layered look, so I will go back around with another strip of fabric. Just trim off that excess, and then you are ready to go around again with your second layer of muslin fabric. And you just do that same technique. You work in sections, adding a dab of hot glue, pressing down your fabric, creating those little pleats, and working until you get all the way back around your pie once again for the second time. And look how cute this is looking. Now we are ready to start cutting strips of our fabric to create a crisscross technique over the top of our pie, just like a real pie. So you want to take your strips of fabric and just measure out how long you will need each strip. I like to put 3 strips going vertical and then 3 strips going horizontal. So you can just measure out the length of each fabric strip you need and cut them, and then we're just going to hot glue these in place. And I like to just put a dab of hot glue on one end, and I'll go ahead and glue down the 3 strips all at one end. And then I will wait and get my other fabric in place before I hot glue everything else down, because what you want to do, you want to kind of overlap those pieces of fabric. You want to go like with your first strip, you'll go over, under, over. And then your second strip, your middle strip, you'll do opposite of that. So you'll go under, over, under. And then your last strip, you'll do the same as you did on the top. And you know, you don't have to do it perfect, and it doesn't have to be exact, but I'll just kind of do that to offset it and to give it that real look of your pie crust. And of course, we have to embellish with a bow. I have the Jubilee homespun fabric. I make a simple, I rip it. These are the jelly rolls, and this color is from the Vintage Christmas collection. But I'll just rip my fabric into strips and made a little simple bow, embellished with a button, and hot glued that on the side. And I did want to make a little tag. I get these cute little cardboard tags from Amazon, and you saw me just kind of balling it up and just giving it a worn look. And then I take my letter stamps from Hobby Lobby and my archival ink, and I just simply, these tags were very small. I didn't have a lot of room to stamp homemade or anything like that. So I just stamped the word pie on there. How cute, how simple. And once I get that stamped, and there it is. And here I am just gluing my bow down. I do end up coffee grunging that little tag. I placed it down with hot glue before I coffee grunged it. I completely forgot, but that's okay. You can still coffee grunge it. You know how I love my coffee grunge, and if you're not familiar with it, it's hot water, instant coffee, cinnamon, vanilla, and I also like to add pumpkin spice seasoning to it, and you want to store it in the fridge between uses and stir it when you get ready to use it each time, because those spices will settle at the bottom. And I also took that coffee grunge and I'm just kind of dabbing it on my pie around those edges and just sort of doing a dry brushing technique with that coffee grunge all over that pie. But look how cute this is. And if you don't really like that look, that primitive, more of that primitive look with the coffee grunge, you can just skip this step. And you can also, I wanted this to look more Christmassy, so I chose the red fabric, but you could use any fabric you would like. You could also use blueberries, or you could mix your berries and do some red and some blueberries. You could do blackberries. The possibilities are endless. These are so cute. And just to show you real quick how I coffee stain that muslin fabric, just place it in a cup of black coffee and let it sit for just a few minutes. Bring it out. You can dry it with your heat tool or let it dry outside in the sun. Okay, here is where I wanted to show you. I was starting a second pie and I just wanted to show you a couple of things I changed. I first coated my plate with Mod Podge because sometimes that hot glue does not want to adhere very well to a slick, smooth surface. So by applying that Mod Podge, it's creating a surface for that hot glue to better adhere to. Second, I cut a piece of that muslin fabric to fit right in the center of my plate, and I hot glued that right down for two reasons. The first reason is so the berries will better stick to your surface rather than just the slick, smooth plate. And second, if you can see past any of those berries in your pie and you see that fabric, it's going to mimic crust more than if you're just seeing that white plate, or especially if you're using a surface and you don't want to be able to see it at all. It looks better to just see that fabric, and it looks more realistic as well. And after that, you just continue with the same technique of gluing your berries down and then going around with your crust and then going over with your crust, and you create these cute little pies. These are the cutest little things to add to your Christmas decor displays. You can also add a jute string to these and make them little ornaments for your Christmas tree. The possibilities are endless. Don't forget, I am a retailer of the Sweet Pickins Milk Paint. You can contact me through my Facebook business page. All you do is send me a message to place your orders, and the color of the month is sweet potato. So you can receive 35% off of your order on that color. Get your orders in and take advantage of this discount while it's available. I love grabbing these little tins when I'm in the thrift store. These two I had previously started painting with some texture additive. I can't quite remember the color of the paint I was using, but I did add the Dixie Belle Sea Spray to it to add that texture. And then I pushed them aside and never went back and finished the project. But that was perfect because they are perfect for what I need for today's project. I'm going in with the color Pine Cone in the Dixie Belle. Dixie Belle is a chalk paint. It has become my favorite chalk paint, I will say. But I give one good coat and I go ahead and do a second coat as well. The texture is perfect with the sea salt additive in it in that first coat I applied. I also have these candles. These are the battery operated candles, and they're already white, but I wanted them a little bit of a off-white color, and I wanted them chalky. So the perfect color is this drop cloth color by Dixie Belle as well. And I do one good coat and let that dry. Now back to my tin cans. My second coat of Pine Cone is completely dry. Now I'm going in with a chippy brush, and I'm using the color Gravel Road in the Dixie Belle as well. I'm doing a dry brushing technique over the can. I'm just putting a little bit of paint on my brush, and I'm dabbing it onto my craft paper and offloading most of the paint. And then very light-handedly, I go over that can with my paintbrush. And that's just creating some distressing on there, and it's almost giving it, I'm going for a primitive look, and these colors Anytime, you hear the word primitive, just think of very earthy colors. And these colors were the perfect choice because I wanted a neutral color, but I wanted it to be primitive. And I just went ahead and distressed the whole can. While those are drying, I go back to my little candles. Before I apply the second coat of paint, they already had the little faux wax drips on the top of them, but I wanted to enhance that just a bit. So I took my hot glue gun and just went along those little marks that were already there, and that just enhanced that detail a bit more. I go around the whole candle and then I set it to the side to dry, and then you can just pull away any glue strings. Now back to our can. I have these really cute little Christmas images I purchased off of an Etsy shop. Any of the products I'm using in today's video, if you are interested in any of those links, just comment and I will be glad to share those links with you. I'm taking a little paintbrush and dipping it into my water. It's the same thing as using a water pen. I just go around with that wet paintbrush everywhere I want to tear my paper, and I just tear away that excess paper away from my label rather than cutting it. I just like the torn look opposed to the fresh cut look, but that is definitely your choice, and you can just do the one you would rather do. Another technique I like to do, especially when I'm going more for a vintage primitive look, I like to do the burn method along my labels or my images, and you just use a lighter and just hold it around the edge of your paper. You want to keep a little bit of water handy with a paper towel or a rag that you can just dab. You let it burn to your liking, and then you want to dab it with your wet paper towel or your wet rag to make sure it doesn't burn more than you want it to. Now I'm ready to attach the label onto the tin can. So I apply Mod Podge onto the back. I just keep my Mod Podge in this little squeeze bottle here. You want to be sure you get that Mod Podge all the way to the edges and all the way all over the back of your paper. You can also apply the Mod Podge directly onto your surface if you would rather do that. And press that label down, and to help with any wrinkles, you can use a balled up piece of saran wrap and just carefully wipe over your label, and that will help decrease your wrinkles. Then I like to take my heat tool, and that just sort of helps that Mod Podge warm up and it helps your paper adhere to your surface. And then it also heat sets that ink because I print my labels using my regular inkjet printer. So to prevent any smears in your ink, you can heat set it. I also love to seal it with wax once I'm all finished. And especially since here in this next step, I am using my coffee grunge to just sort of make that label a little more vintage. I wanted those colors a little less bright, so coffee grunge is the perfect way to do that. And I just went ahead and brushed that coffee grunge all over my entire can. And if you want your tin cans to be less primitive, you could skip this step as well. I want to show you another technique you can do when it comes to decoupaging on your printed labels. You can layer your paper. If you want it to be a little bit thicker, all you do is just apply Mod Podge to the back of your label, and then you want to press it down on another piece of paper, and I'm just using regular computer paper. And after that, you just cut around your label. Then you're ready to do that same burn technique using your lighter, and that Mod Podge is wet between your two papers, so you'll get a little less burn this way. The way I did it the first time, you tend to get a little more burning because your paper is dry, but this way your paper is wet. You'll still get burning, but not quite as much. I personally like the first way. I did it better. You just have to be a little bit quicker with your wet napkin or your wet rag to outen it so it won't, burn too much. But again, it's your preference. And then you're ready to apply it to your surface just like usual with your Mod Podge. I just like to coat the back of my label with the Mod Podge and then apply it right to the tin can. And back to our candles. That hot glue is good and dry, so we're ready to go ahead and do our second coat of paint. And while that paint is still wet, you want to grab your cinnamon and sprinkle right over it. You want that paint to be wet so that cinnamon will stick to it and it will just dry right in with your paint. And I like to take my fingertip and lightly rub over it and just kind of rub that cinnamon into the paint a little bit better, and it almost gives it a dusted look. And after you're sure your paint is dry, you can take that coffee grunge and just brush over your candle, applying that coffee grunge all over your candle, over that cinnamon, and it just gives it a grungy, primitive look. Then you want to apply heat using your heat tool or a blow dryer. There is just something magical that happens when heat goes over that coffee grunge and cinnamon. Now we are ready to fill our tin cans. I have the floral foam pieces I'm going to use to create some height to put our candles in there. This was a boo-boo. I started to stick some filler in there, but realized I needed to glue my candle down first. So rewind, take that out, put some hot glue on the bottom of that little candlestick or the little candle stand. Just kind of hold that there a second, give it time to dry. And I did decide to go with just regular burlap instead of this burlap mesh. I just thought it looked a little more primitive and matched our little theme we had going on. And I just simply wanted to add some moss. I have this Spanish moss. I'm pretty sure I got it from Hobby Lobby. It has a really pretty greenish tint to it. And then I also have this pretty berry garland. I'm not quite sure where I got this from. I know I got a berry garland similar to this at Dollar Tree, but the berries on it were a little brighter than this. I'm pretty sure I thrifted this, so not quite sure, but I'm sure you could find these at Hobby Lobby or any craft store. And I just cut a piece off and wrapped it back around into its circular shape and then laid it right on top of that Spanish moss. I added some pine cones in there as well, these little mini pine cones I get off of Amazon. I did add a fabric bow on one and embellished with a rusty bell, and I left one without the bow just so you could see it both ways. I myself personally love the one with the bow, but I am a bow person, but I know not everyone is. But look how cute these are. I just absolutely love them. I think they are so cute. Y'all let me know what you think of these. I hope you are a part of our group, Crafting with the Hot Mess Express, over on Facebook. And this Friday, October 25th, we have another awesome live event beginning at 11 a.m. Eastern and lasting all afternoon with crafters every hour on the hour. My live segment will be at 11 a.m. You can find me on my Facebook page as well as in the Crafting with the Hot Mess Express group. Be sure you are a part of this fun event. I love picking up picture frames at the thrift store. Look at this beautiful frame I thrifted at my local Goodwill for $3.98. I knew I was going to want to paint it. I decided to go in with the color Dixie Belle it's the color Burlap in the Dixie Belle. And we are going to be using that first color I showed as well, the color Drop Cloth in the Dixie Belle. First, I wanted to go in with burlap for the base coat, and I just brushed on that first coat. After the first coat dried, I went ahead and went in with a second coat of the same color. But before that second coat dried completely, I grabbed that other color, the color Drop Cloth in the Dixie Belle, and I took a smaller brush and I just kind of went around. I know I'm not exactly in view here and I'm sorry, but I just went around and pounced that lighter color and blended it in with that darker color. And the chalk paint dries fast anyway, and this was sort of a big frame, so I kind of had to keep using my other paintbrush with the burlap color, and I would apply just a little bit for it to be wet, and then I would go back in with my small brush with the color Drop Cloth, which is the lighter color. So from here on out, I'll just say darker color and lighter color so it will be less confusing. But I just did that entire technique all around the frame. And there were, as you can see, all the beautiful detail in this frame, but it was a little challenging to paint, so I had to use 3 different paint brushes. And y'all, I use the cheap brushes. I'm not big on buying expensive brushes. For one, I leave them out half the time and they get ruined. And another, I just go through them so fast and have to throw them away. But I did use 3 different paint brushes to complete this frame project because I had to use a much smaller brush to get in all those little cracks and holes, but I eventually got it. But y'all, I probably painted on this frame a good hour, just blending and getting it the look that I was trying to achieve. And to get around the very inside edge of the frame, I took a small paintbrush. I get those packs of small paintbrushes off of Amazon, and I took a little piece of craft paper and just kind of slid underneath, and I just painted along while I slid that paper to keep as much paint off of that glass as possible. I decided to go in with Gray Grunge, Dixie Belle's Gray Grunge. I tested a little part on the bottom because I weren't quite sure if I wanted to go in with the Gray Grunge or the Best Dang Wax in the brown. And when I applied that Gray Grunge on the bottom, y'all, I loved it. It created the most beautiful look. I just loved it. So I went ahead and went in all the way, pretty heavy on the Gray Grunge, and I just took my brush and blended it in really well. I didn't wipe away much excess. I let it sit for a long time, and then I just kind of patted it with you can use a lint-free rag or a paper towel to kind of wipe off your excess wax. But if you're liking that heavy wax look, just kind of blot it to, take off any of that excess without removing a lot of your color. This week I've been working on primitive Christmas crafts, so of course I had to choose a primitive snowman image. I will include the link in the comments where I purchased this image from, and before I just printed it with my regular inkjet printer, but before I put it in my frame, I am going to put the glass back in there, but I do want to seal this image, so I'm using beeswax in the white. This beeswax has a very light white hue. I mean, hardly any at all. It's almost a clear wax, but I just love it because it has that perfect hint of that white hue. And I just blended that all over my image to seal it. And I put it back in, but I didn't measure anything before I cut it. And I didn't know that it was going to show so much of a border of the cardboard around my image. So I decided to take that back out. I grabbed my paintbrush and the color burlap, and I just went and painted that whole piece of cardboard. I know you could only see around that very edge, but y'all, stuff like that drives me crazy, and I know it's not painted all the way. So I just went ahead and painted that whole piece of cardboard so that that part showing would match the frame. I let that dry, and I took my Gray Grunge wax and I went around the edges as well. Just like we did the frame, the only difference is I didn't do the blending technique of the 2 different colors. I added some Mod Podge right to that piece just so my print wouldn't slide all around in the frame. I wanted it to stay secure, so I just brushed on a little bit of that Mod Podge right in the center. And then I lined up my image with my frame down so I could see, because I wanted to make sure you know, I had the same amount of space all the way around my image. I just added, I didn't measure or anything, and I just rubbed that in the Mod Podge where it would adhere and stick. I put that glass back in, and I closed that frame back up, and off camera I did clean off the back, and I removed the price tag, or I had to use some sandpaper because this particular Goodwill likes to write the prices on the items. And y'all, look how cute this is. So the next time you're in that thrift store, don't leave those pretty frames behind, because you can go on Etsy and there are so many beautiful images to choose from for just $1 or $2. And you can print them off as many times as you would like. And you can paint those frames and stick those images in those frames for a beautiful upcycle, y'all. I just love this. And I love it because after Christmas and after winter, you can put a different image. You can't remove that one because I did put the Mod Podge, but you can put another image right on top and keep it out all year long. Well, friends, we have come to the end of our video for today, and we will take a look at these projects one last time. I just absolutely love how they all turned out and how they go so well together. I didn't really go into this planning for all of these to go together, but it worked out perfectly. Y'all, these little mini pies are the cutest little thing, and you can create them any way you would like, any size. The possibility is just endless, and they don't have to be for just Christmas time either. And I love how the little snowman frame turned out. I love that print. The link for that will be in the comments or either in the description. I hope y'all enjoyed today's video. Thanks so much for stopping by my channel. And before you leave, make sure you are subscribed. Hit that bell to be sure you're getting notifications so you won't miss any future videos. I usually upload a new video every week, and I would love for you to be a part of my YouTube family. You can also find me on Facebook and TikTok. Have a blessed day, friends. See you next time.